The biopic Michael chronicles MJ's rise to global fame, starting from the discovery of the Jackson 5 to his transition into a solo artist. And fun fact, Jaafar Jackson, who plays Michael in the film, is a late singer.
More than 2,000 actors auditioned for the role, but Jaafar Jackson was the one who stood out. He then spent 2 years training to become Michael Jackson.
A lot of scenes from other films, and it was a multi-year process. It wasn't just a traditional audition. I definitely had to earn the role.
Slept in his uncle's childhood bedroom and rebuilt his entire voice from scratch. By the time the cameras rolled, cheering, his own family forgot they were watching a performance. This is the stunning transformation of Jaafar Jackson. Born into legacy, some people spend their whole lives running from a shadow. Jaafar Jackson decided to grow inside his shadow and let it shape him into something new. Being born into the Jackson family meant glamour, but also impossible expectations. As the son of Jermaine Jackson, an original member of the Jackson 5 and fashion designer Alejandro Oaziaza, Jaafar grew up surrounded by music, fame, and constant comparison. Born in 1996, he watched one of entertainment's most legendary families from the inside. His parents married in 1995, welcomed Jaafar and younger brother Jermajesti, then divorced in 2008. Yet both remained guiding forces as he searched for his own path. Unlike celebrity kids who chase attention, Jaafar stayed out of headlines, appearing in a few family projects, but never rushing the spotlight. I am Jermaine Jackson.
I'm Jefe.
And I'm Your Majesty. While the world expected another Jackson to follow the familiar script, he waited. That quiet patience was preparation. And when Jaafar finally stepped forward, he would astonish everyone watching. Before we move on, here is an interesting image. It shows Jaafar Jackson looking almost identical to his legendary uncle, Michael Jackson, dressed in the king of pop's iconic red military-style jacket. Jaafar smiles and waves to the crowd as cameras flash around him. While the image captures Jaafar portraying his famous uncle, it has sparked plenty of conversation about just how closely he resembles the global superstar. Some fans call it an incredible tribute, while others are amazed by the family resemblance. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Finding his own sound. Jaafar Jackson refused to take the easiest path. Instead of leaning on his famous last name, he quietly began building a music career that sounded like his own. In 2019, he released his debut single, Got Me Singing. The smooth R&B track blended soulful melodies and effortless vocals that carried a familiar Jackson touch without feeling like an imitation. The song introduced listeners to an artist determined to carve out his own identity. He followed it with more music rooted in classic soul and R&B instead of chasing trends. The releases never became massive hits, and that never seemed to bother him. While others chased viral moments, Jaafar focused on writing, recording, and sharpening his craft one song at a time. Interview 315_322. He performed in smaller venues, kept learning, and treated every release like another brick in a bigger foundation. That quiet approach didn't create instant headlines, but it prepared him for a moment that would change everything. The life-changing decision. Everything changed when Jaafar Jackson stepped away from the path he already knew. He had been building a music career, releasing his own songs, and steadily finding his voice. Acting was never part of the plan. His focus was on creating music and growing as a performer on his own terms. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. He chose to portray Michael Jackson in the highly anticipated biopic. It was more than a new role. It meant leaving the comfort of music behind and stepping into one of the most demanding acting debuts imaginable. Instead of staying where he felt safe, Jaafar chose the harder road. He traded recording sessions for intense rehearsals, studying every movement, expression, and detail needed to bring his legendary uncle to life. Interview 423_427. It wasn't about chasing fame. It was about accepting a challenge few people would dare to face. That bold decision transformed him from a rising musician into an actor the entire world was suddenly watching, winning the biggest role. Only one person could walk away with Hollywood's toughest role. Nearly 2,000 hopefuls wanted the chance to play Michael Jackson, and the competition was relentless. Actors memorized old interviews. Dancers practiced every famous move. Many assumed Jaafar Jackson would be handed the role because he carried the Jackson name. They couldn't have been more wrong. He had to audition like everyone else and prove he deserved it.
No shortcuts.
Jaafar threw himself into the process. He studied Michael's walk, posture, expressions, and the quiet pauses between movements. Every detail mattered because millions of fans already knew what felt real and what didn't. The pressure was enormous. One wrong performance could have damaged both the film and his reputation. But when Jaafar stepped in front of the camera, everything changed. The filmmakers no longer saw Michael's nephew. They saw the only person who could bring the legend back to life. The search was over. But Jaafar's greatest transformation was only beginning. 2 years of change. Everything familiar had to disappear. The moment Jaafar Jackson accepted the role, he committed to a transformation that would take 2 relentless years. There was no slow start and no room for excuses. Every day became a test of discipline. He trained to master Michael Jackson's voice, movements, expressions, and emotions. Nothing came easily. Many techniques felt awkward at first, and progress seemed frustratingly slow. But quitting was never part of the plan. Whenever something didn't feel right, Jaafar repeated it until it became natural. His goal was never to copy his uncle. He wanted every movement to feel genuine, not performed. That meant rebuilding his instincts until the performance looked effortless instead of rehearsed. Interview 627_632. Day after day, the hard work slowly reshaped him. The singer who once stood behind a microphone was becoming an actor capable of carrying one of Hollywood's biggest music roles. By the end of those 2 years, the change was impossible to ignore. Living in Michael's world, few roles demand far more than talent. For Jaafar Jackson, preparing to play Michael Jackson meant going beyond rehearsals. To fully understand his uncle, he spent time living and training inside Michael's former bedroom at the Jackson family estate at Havenhurst in Enino, California, where the family moved after finding massive success. Interview 709_715. This wasn't a film set built for cameras. It was a deeply personal space where every object carried a story and every corner reflected a life the world thought it already knew. Instead of simply studying Michael's performances, Jaafar immersed himself in the atmosphere that had once surrounded him. The line between practice and real life slowly disappeared. When rehearsals ended, the work didn't. He remained surrounded by the same environment, allowing the role to become part of his daily routine. Most actors leave their characters behind when the cameras stop rolling. Jaafar couldn't. By the time he walked out of that room, he had grown into a new version of himself, and the results would soon leave audiences staring twice. Building Michael's voice, talent opened the door. But relentless discipline pushed Jaafar Jackson further. Taking on Michael Jackson's legacy demanded far more than confidence. Working closely with elite Hollywood vocal and movement consultants, Jaafar broke down every detail of how his uncle moved, spoke, music, and carried himself. The mission was never simple imitation. It was music absolute precision. Each pause had a purpose. Even Michael's unmistakable voice had to be studied with incredible care. Its soft tone and unique delivery couldn't be copied overnight. Jaafar spent countless hours refining his voice, breathing, and timing until they no longer felt forced. Gradually, the performance stopped sounding like someone playing Michael. It began to feel natural. The lessons reached beyond movement and speech. Jaafar learned how Michael's emotions shaped every word and gesture before they reached the audience. That deeper understanding changed the way he approached the role from the inside, music out. By then, he wasn't simply recreating a legend. We can start on the end. He was uncovering the mindset that made Michael Jackson unforgettable. The art of becoming, understanding beat imitation. That single choice decided everything after. Copying Michael Jackson's moves was never Jaafar Jackson's goal. Like his uncle before him, he believed every performance had to be understood before it could come alive. Rather than memorizing what Michael did, Jaafar studied why he did it. The rhythm, the emotion, the intent behind every movement, building the role from the inside out. The hardest part was balance. Too much focus on dancing risked weakening the acting. Too much focus on acting risked making performances feel hollow. The two had to move together naturally, and that challenge tested him daily. Jaafar wasn't trying to recreate a highlight reel of famous moments. He was trying to bring a complete human being back to the screen. Flaws and brilliance included. Few actors would willingly take on that kind of pressure. Jaafar embraced it fully, knowing the final result would determine whether audiences truly believed every second of his performance. The ultimate test. The real test finally arrived. Jaafar Jackson was no longer practicing behind closed doors. He had to recreate one of Michael Jackson's most iconic performances before an audience that knew every move by heart. Among his biggest challenges was bringing Michael's unforgettable 1988 performance of Human Nature at Wembley Stadium back to life. Fans had watched that concert countless times. Every step, pause, and expression had become part of music history. That left Jaafar with almost no room for error. He couldn't rely on flashy tricks or his famous last name. Every movement had to feel authentic enough to satisfy millions who already knew exactly how the performance should look. As the moment drew closer, the pressure only grew. He wasn't trying to improve a classic or create a new version. His job was to honor it while making it feel alive again. The music was about to begin, and his biggest challenge was finally standing right in front of him. The most feared move. Some moves are so legendary that copying them can end a career before it begins. For Jaafar Jackson, nothing carried more pressure than Michael Jackson's famous moonwalk. The world had watched it countless times. Jaafar refused to treat it like a simple dance move. He broke it down piece by piece, studying every shift of weight, every slide, and every perfectly timed pause. Nothing was left to chance. The pressure never disappeared. Millions already knew how the original looked, meaning every rehearsal came with silent comparisons. There was no such thing as close enough. Even the smallest mistake could be noticed instantly. Instead of settling, Jaafar practiced the move over and over. Each attempt brought him closer, not to copying Michael, but to making the performance feel completely natural. Eventually, the moonwalk stopped looking rehearsed and started flowing without effort. That was the moment everything clicked. And one of the greatest challenges of his journey was finally behind him. Fuqua saw the change. Doubt can destroy a movie long before the cameras stop rolling. This one survived because one man recognized something extraordinary in Jaafar Jackson. Director Antoine Fuqua knew this role carried enormous pressure. One wrong move could damage the entire film. The world was waiting to judge every scene. But Fuqua saw something different behind the rehearsals. He saw relentless commitment, endless discipline, a level of dedication that could never be faked. As filming continued, he watched Jaafar slowly disappear into the role. It no longer felt like an actor copying Michael Jackson. It felt like someone completely living the part. That shift changed the mood across the set. Fuqua pushed harder because he knew Jaafar could handle it. Jaafar answered every challenge with even greater determination. Failure was never an option when millions were ready to compare every move. Slowly, the fear faded. Confidence took over, and even the director knew he was witnessing something far beyond an ordinary performance. The face of Michael. The mirror stopped showing Jaafar Jackson. Something far more unsettling stared back. The first full makeup test demanded hours of patience as artists carefully music, applied prosthetics, styled wigs, and refined every tiny detail. There were no shortcuts. Music, every feature had to feel authentic from every angle. Oscar-winning makeup designer Bill Corso led the process, shaping each piece around Jaafar's natural facial structure instead of hiding it. His resemblance to Michael Jackson allowed the team to use subtle changes rather than heavy effects. Then came the moment that silenced the room. Jaafar stepped out in full costume, and crew members reportedly froze as the familiar face before them seemed to disappear. From that day forward, the process became music part of his daily routine. Every morning of filming began with hours in the makeup chair before he faced the cameras. By the time he reached the set, Jaafar was no longer preparing to play Michael. He looked ready to become him. If you've made it this far, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel. Deep Role Study. A performance built on detail starts before cameras roll. Jaafar Jackson's preparation went far beyond standard rehearsal. His space became a visual archive of Michael Jackson's eras, filled with images from Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. Each era was treated like a separate world studied with surgical attention. He spent hours watching live performances from different tours and cities. Every crowd reaction revealed something new in Michael's energy. Interview 14, 57_1504. Even the smallest shift in movement was tracked and compared. Interview footage became another layer of study. Played at slower speed, it exposed subtle expressions and unconscious habits most viewers would never notice. Every glance and change in tone was broken down and stored. Director Antoine Fuqua pushed the cast through table reads that felt closer to dramatic theater than a music biopic. Every line had weight. Every silence mattered. By filming, Jaafar had already lived inside the role for months. What began as imitation evolved into something harder to shake off. The world started watching. The countdown ended, and the spotlight became inescapable. When Lionsgate released the first teaser for Michael, it stopped being just another movie trailer. Within hours, it became a global talking point. Millions pressed play on the first day, making it one of the studio's biggest trailer launches ever and setting a new benchmark for a musical biopic. The internet wasted no time. Fans replayed every second, slowed down every movement, and examined every expression. They were not simply watching a film. They were judging whether Jaafar Jackson could truly carry Michael Jackson's legacy. For Jaafar, those numbers meant far more than online buzz. They proved the world was paying attention to every detail, every gesture, each step, every tiny mistake would be noticed. The pressure had officially left the rehearsal room and entered the public eye. From that moment forward, there was no hiding behind the production. The performance now belonged to millions, and everyone was waiting to see what happened next. Box office answered. The verdict arrived where it mattered most. At the box office. When Michael hit theaters on April 24, 2026, the numbers spoke louder than every argument before. The film quickly became one of the highest-grossing musical biopics ever released. The success reached beyond ticket sales. IMAX audiences turned out in huge numbers, giving Music, the film, the biggest IMAX opening ever recorded for a musical biopic. Theaters filled worldwide as curiosity turned into packed screenings, proving anticipation had turned into genuine excitement. By then, the online debates had lost their grip. Claims of nepotism, endless comparisons, and months of criticism could not change what was happening inside theaters. Millions of ordinary moviegoers made the decision themselves. For Jaafar Jackson, the result carried real weight. His performance was no longer judged only by headlines or social media. It had earned its place before audiences worldwide. Once history records numbers like these, changing the story becomes almost impossible. Love behind the spotlight. Loyalty doesn't make headlines, but it builds the kind of strength that eventually does. Long before cameras followed Jaafar Jackson, singer Maddie Simpson was already by his side. The couple began dating in 2016 after meeting as teenagers. Growing together years before Hollywood took notice, as Jaafar immersed himself in becoming Michael Jackson, Maddie watched the transformation unfold up close, praising his relentless focus, discipline, and growth. Interview 1816_1822. Having witnessed the countless hours of work hidden behind the polished final performance, their relationship only deepened from there. Jaafar proposed, and the couple celebrated their engagement with family and close friends in 2025. During the Michael press tour, Maddie stood proudly beside him on red carpets in Berlin, Los Angeles, and Gary supporting him through every milestone. Behind one of the year's most talked about transformations was a relationship rooted in patience, loyalty, and quiet devotion. And with that foundation steady beneath him, Jaafar's journey was only just beginning to Music reach its biggest stage yet. Jaafar's secret preparation. The secret weapon wasn't choreography. It was a stack of private notebooks no one expected to matter. While promoting Michael in April 2026 on The Jennifer Hudson Show, Jaafar Jackson opened up about the unconventional method behind his transformation. Joined by co-stars Coleman Domingo and young Juliano Valdi, who portrays the childhood era of Michael in the film, he revealed that instead of leaning solely on rehearsals, he immersed himself in Michael Jackson's personal journals, handwritten notes, poems, and daily affirmations. These intimate writings exposed the discipline, creativity, and quiet determination behind the global superstar, giving Jaafar insight that went far beyond mimicking dance moves or vocal style. Interview 1949_1955. The cast also discussed the intense rehearsal process and emotional weight of recreating some of Music's most iconic performances, knowing every scene would be measured against a legend the world already knew by heart. For Snort's Jaafar, the role became deeply personal, reshaping his understanding of his uncle. Yet, even with this newfound connection, the real challenge was still ahead, proving it to the world. From private to public, fame arrived quietly, then exploded overnight. For years, Jaafar Jackson kept a low profile. His social media focused on music with only occasional updates and little interest in chasing constant attention. He stayed out of celebrity drama and let his work speak for itself. Then, everything changed. The moment he was announced as Michael Jackson, millions of curious eyes rushed to his pages. Every new photo sparked debates, comparisons, and endless reactions. His once quiet profile suddenly turned into the front line of one of Hollywood's biggest conversations. The change did not stop online. Interviews, red carpets, global premieres, and magazine features placed Jaafar in a spotlight he had never experienced before. Fans no longer saw him as Jermaine Jackson's son. They saw the man trusted to carry Michael Jackson's legacy. His social media stopped documenting a private journey. It became the public record of a career that had changed forever. And with every post, the world watched even closer. Late night revelation. The truth slipped out under studio lights, not in rehearsals or press notes. On The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, Jaafar Jackson gave the world a rare glimpse behind the curtain. The energy was light, but the story underneath carried weight. He spoke about stepping into the role and how quickly everything escalated once filming began. The production dropped him straight into recreating some of Michael Jackson's most demanding stage work. Every movement had to be exact. Jaafar described the process as intense from the first days on set. Long hours, constant repetition, and no space to hesitate. Even the smallest details were pushed until they felt automatic. What stood out most in his conversation was how fast the shift happened. One moment, he was preparing. Interview 2208_2213. The next, he was fully inside the role with no time to step back and reset. The stage was set, the cameras were rolling, and there was no room left for anything halfway. Jaafar Jackson did not simply step into one of entertainment's biggest roles. He accepted a challenge most actors would never dare face. Whether one sees a remarkable tribute or an impossible task, one thing is certain. His astonishing evolution